He doesn't really need an introduction. He was the president of the Max Planck Institute in Germany for 12 years, and then was the president of OIST. And very importantly, it's not just the science and the science administration, but also the links to industry and innovation. Peter set up at Siemens, the German conglomerate, the Innovation and Forward-Looking Advisory Board, which helped turn around, Siemens. And so there's really nobody better, in my opinion, to give us a perspective on what is the landscape of science research and innovation, and where does Japan fit into the global context here? So without further ado, Peter, the floor is yours. The procedures are straightforward. Peter is going to enlighten us, for around 25, 30 minutes. Then we'll have a little fireside chat, and then we'll have Q&A from you guys. So Peter, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Jesper, for this kind introduction. Thank you all for coming. I see many friends that I have made over my 6 years that I have spent in Japan, and I enjoyed my time tremendously. But that time was also a possibility to gain some deeper insight into the issues. And we all know that Japan is a wonderful country. It's a country that is highly productive, has a tremendous post-war economic accomplishment. But we also know that lately the engine stutters a little bit. So I attempt in the course of my talk to give you a little bit my view as to what is missing in the innovation pipeline. Because as you will see in a minute, the elements that make up innovation, these are like a gearbox, and all the wheels have to intersect with each other. Now, talking about innovation, I thought I'd start with something that I picked up in the States from a friend of mine, which is a complete innovative way to present and summarize data within minutes. So what I will show you initially is a short movie clip. So I got access to this because a friend of mine, it's not yet publicly available, owns the company. And another friend of mine, John Scully, maybe the name rings a bell. He was the CEO of Apple. He's the chair of the board. And no human has touched anything of what you've seen. All it was, I gave them a PowerPoint. If you have something written, a picture, a painting or whatnot, it will generate this within minutes. And obviously, for those of you who are in the virtual world, this thing in conjunction with Google, Facebook, or whatnot is going to be a smashing hit. So, on the other hand, I should stop here and we could discuss it because the message was all there. But then I would have done my PowerPoint just for nothing. So let's just run you a little bit through the key point and arguments. And the one thing I have to complain, the voice was a bit flat. Not enough empathy. So I gotta blame these guys to get a bit more, speaker-wise and what's called prosody. The melody of a sentence. So in any case, this is what I want to do today. I want to analyze the current state of the art. Then I give you some suggestions about proposals, how to improve it. And finally, very briefly on the implementation. So here, the sad news is at the beginning. China overtook Japan as the world's biggest vehicle exporter last year. Tesla's compact SUV Model Y is the best-selling car, overtaking, I think it's Toyota Corolla. And Akio Toyoda has nicely summarized that by saying somewhere along the way, we became a company that prioritizes volume and profits, a company that makes money, not cars. We can talk about that issue separately because it's quite an item worldwide, what type of cars are selling now. This is even more problematic. Companies in Japan lag behind those in the US and Europe in the use of generative artificial AI. A government white paper showed a month ago. The white paper said that 46.8% of the companies in Japan use generative AI compared with 85 in the US. So it's much wider spread, and 72 in Germany. So there is something that needs to be done. And so let me run from you through the ideas I have how to really do this. So first thing is this question. How can Japan strengthen its innovative power? So the processes that lead to innovation are complex. As I said, I compared it to a gearbox. There is market pull. You can see here in London from the late 19th century, in 50 years, every street in London will be buried under 9 feet of manure. So you need a solution for a market pull. This is a technology push. But technology push requires to overcome resistance. So here, Kaiser Wilhelm, Emperor Wilhelm said, I believe in the horse. The automobile is a temporary appearance. So this is how it goes with innovation. It takes a long time until you penetrate the market. This looks complex. It's a depiction of the innovation system in the UK. But I can tell you, it is the same in every country of the world. And what you have initially are large firms and universities. Those are the players that need to work and harmonize together. And that's being done in part through funding, because you need on the one side talent, you need on the other side finances, and you need in this context, besides the players, large firms, universities, research organizations, you need funding from both industry and from government. And that in turn leads to venture capital interested in making money by generating startups, for example. And I'll say more about that. Just for you, because it's very critical that we understand what Japan is good at. And Japan is excellent in that. A new idea is, what it was the definition of innovation is on top, new idea, more effective device, product process that takes time to reveal its market potential. So we have the incremental innovation, the market pull. And from my point of view, this is what Japan excels in. They come up with perfect products. And these products, of course, are low risk because people want them. There is a market, like I said, with the horse manure. There is a market for it. They earn some money for some time, and then the next incremental innovation has to be done. But what is a deficit in Japan is what I call here the breakthrough innovation that creates new products, generates a technology push, and has to generate a market. See Kaiser Wilhelm, who said it's not going to work with the automobiles. This represents high risk for industry. That's why, by the way, worldwide, you have very little investment in high-risk breakthrough innovation because the companies have no idea whether it will succeed or not. So let's take a look at the universities and the institutions that deliver the, in this particular case, the breakthrough innovation. Why do you think we need it? Well, basic research funds support long-term, high-risk research that private companies avoid. It creates an innovative ecosystem, establishes research institutions, tech parks, fostering academic-industry relationship, because both then will gain. And here's key, addresses market failure. Because, you know, if the time is right, the technologies are there, and I'm coming to this in a little while, there is room for innovation that does not come from traditional companies. Support startups, obviously, if you have a new idea. That new idea in general terms is an idea that you want to, you know, translate into something new. And the market failure already had. So I just give you an overview of recent. These are recent examples that illustrate how basic academic research can lead to transformative technologies and products. You have graphene, Nobel Prize, CRISPR, gene editing, a wonderful method to repair in patients actually genetic defects. And just lately, there has been one patient that had sickle cell anemia, has been cured with a single treatment. I should also say this single treatment costs 2 million. But after that, you're cured. Why? Because you replace, with CRISPR, you replace the defective gene. MRI, GPS, you need a very precise atomic clock. But frankly speaking, GPS goes back to Albert Einstein, because without the relativity theory, we wouldn't know anything about that. Lithium-ion batteries, LCD, page rank algorithm, it's in Google search engine, and touchscreen technology. So these are issues that came out of curiosity-driven research. And sometimes you need a genius to actually combine all the IP that is floating around to come up with a revolutionary product. And you can see here the first generation iPod. All of the areas surrounding it are public, are supported by public funds. And as you can note, quite often in the United States, Department of Energy, it's not just universities, it's all kinds of research institutes. And the same is true here, that you have DARPA, you have, again, Department of Energy down there, US military. You know, everything that is literally contributing will, if you are smart enough, contribute to a new product if you can assemble the tools that are floating around. And for that, though, you need a genius like Stephen Jobs. And I give it to you in a very simple scheme here. If you look at the patents that have been written in the United States within a period of 10 years, 73% of all patents have a scientific reference to basic research ideas, concepts, or papers. And down at the bottom is a most highly cited paper. In other words, if you have a paper that is widely read by scientists, this paper also has a greater impact to be cited by patents. which allows a very simple conclusions. Governments hoping that research they fund will foster innovation should therefore emphasize research excellence. When mediocre research is supported, neither science nor innovation is likely to gain much direct benefit. So we need to look then for a research system that produces as many top quality papers as possible. And here we go. Let's just take a look. And what you can see here is the sad truth that the position of Japan in highly cited publications has deteriorated over the years. You can see Japan was number 4, that I think was 2001 or whatnot, right, around 2000. Then between 2008, 2010, it already goes down to 6. Now it's 12, and this is 18 to 20. I'm convinced it goes even further down. This is a real problematic sign. It's a signal that Japan is not producing the know-how that is considered top of the world in order to take this know-how to translate it. And this shows you what the impact is. If you look at the ones in gray, it's the rest of the world. And that's the relative change here over the years. So if it goes down, the relative change is negative. You lose. And you can see this, now we are talking about fields that are crucial, absolutely crucial for modern type of products. Physics, then chemistry, material science, engineering, biochemistry, neuroscience. So you can see computer science. There is literally no field where Japan has gained competitiveness. It has lost competitiveness, and that is something which I think we should be worried about. So let's see how that then relates with government, with R&D funding. Well, first, here's this guy who makes a statement that is also worrisome, because scientific and technological innovation is the most important fighting ground of the international strategic game. So what's that said is, it's not, let's just military. It's innovation, it's products, it's how you dominate the world with your economy. So what you got to do is you have to have an economy that is competitive. Now look at Chinese funding. This was recently published that the Premier Li Jiang, he said that the technological support, the research, R&D goes up 10% every year. Well, admittedly, it comes from a lower level. But nevertheless, this is something where, and it's the fastest growing market for IP in the world, right? So Chinese science thrives. In contrast, Japanese government's budget for science and technology has essentially remained flat. OIST, an institution that is dear to me, has unfortunately not been continually, it has been funded continuously, but did not get the money to grow. And OIST was a perfect model. It brought in top scientists, 65% are non-Japanese, 80% of the students are non-Japanese, and these students would work here if industry would present themselves and give them an option that they can work here. So this is a problem that is symbolic, I might say, for the issues in Japan. And now you should look at this, because if you go to Japanese government, they said, what do you want? we have about 3 point whatever, 2, 3 GDP that we spend. Yes, but you should look at who is spending that money. Most of that money comes from industry. Industry funds their own research in order to improve their own products. So, however, and now look at this. Government R&D funding as a percentage of GDP. This is Japan. So Japan literally since 2001 has not increased the budget. You see the orange line is South Korea, the green line is Germany, and then comes a puzzle. This puzzle, which you see in like violet, is the United States. And it has given me some headaches because it's contra to the argument. But then if you look at the United States funding system, you have the solution. And this is what the solution is like. In the United States, it's the combination of public funding and private sector together that makes the difference. And I show you the numbers here. The federal government spends about 150, whatever there, and the non-profit private donors have another 30 to 40, whatever was billion, added to it. And these are great institutions, Whitehead at MIT, the Allen Institute, the Broad Institute, Howard Hughes Foundation. If you add this up, all of a sudden, the United States is in combination with the public funds exactly in the range of South Korea and Germany. So in consequence, I believe one of the major issues that needs to be changed is public support. So Japan must give the country a boost. And I have frankly said, I'd take 0.5%, as much as they spend now. And then you are just right up here with South Korea or Germany. So let's see what that is. Where's the money from? We already have, and this has happened in the past, let's say 3-4 years, we have the 10 trillion yen university fund. And that is a reasonable start. The question is, how much impact can that 10 trillion fund actually have? Well, let's take a look. Initially, Japan's 10 trillion yen fund was off to a rough start, posting a deficit of 60.4 billion yen. So essentially, if you take it at face value, universities should pay money back. If you look recently, you can see the fund reported a gross investment gain of about 6 billion, marking a 10% return. So you have to take that number with a grain of salt, and you have to take that number in what it means for a country. If I tell you that the Max Planck Society in Germany, which I was in charge of, already spends 2.5 billion US dollar, you can see this is very little and will make a dent, will be helpful, but it certainly does not suffice to bring Japan up to the top level. So this is what the 0.5% increase by public would do. It would increase research output. It would increase patent applications. It would increase jobs. And it would increase the economic impact. It would allow the advancement. If you have more patent, you of course have a higher probability to also have advancement in key technologies. Enhance international competitiveness, because everyone knows that Japan is going down. And it would allow education and skill development. Down at the bottom, you see some case studies, South Korea, Israel, but you also have a negative case study that comes from I think, the Royal Society. If you cut 1 billion, they say what you lose, it's about 10 billion pounds you would lose an impact in the in the UK. Right. So let's take a look what other factors are required. And this is the next, let's say, sad news, but they are interlinked. If you do not produce enough IP, how can you assume that you have high-tech companies being founded in a percentage that is comparative, say, to Europe or rather United States or even Israel, right? So you can see that the amount of venture capital available is very low. And even worse, because when you look at the venture capital source, this is also problematic. 3% of the capital raised in US, 15% in Europe. Average deal size, much lower than in the US. And here also crucial, limited funding for early stage companies. So that's a crucial thing that has to do with the Japanese mentality, because if you fail, you're done. So people are worried about taking risks in order to start something completely new. And the next point I have to explain. Of the venture capital available, 50% is corporate venture capital. I worked for Siemens, like Jesper said. And Siemens had a huge in-house venture capital fund. But this fund is used to improve Siemens products. It's very hard to bring into, let's say, a structure where there are many columns of products, something from the outside which is new. So the 50% corporate venture capital is usually used in the direct and immediate interest of a company. 70, yeah, okay, that's the other thing that I had also in the movie. It's centralized, and we should have a wider spread. So look at the startups. This is the world. And you can see what happened in the past few years, and it's going up amazingly well. Where's Japan? Now, this has been done by separating the countries, the entrepreneurial framework conditions, and Japan is the group of higher income economies. But in this group of higher income companies, the conditions for startups are the least attractive. This is a number the movie also showed. If you look at a reflection of the quality, to me, a reflection of the quality of startups is, of course, are they commercially successful? And United States, 645, Japan, 12. So that's a reflection of the quality of the startups, and it clearly shows there is need for improvement. There are some good news, and we've been talking about this at the meeting yesterday. The job preference of Japanese students changes. This is good news. So unlike in the past, where they primarily wanted to go into government bureaucracy or companies, now half of the university students prefer a startup to start their career. This is a wonderful news. Some more good news. There has been recently a switch in policy. I don't want to go through all of this. A switch in policy from the Japanese government that has caused a new focus on the startup funding. So I think we can go through this very quickly, because you all know this. The challenges are cultural risk aversion, limited venture capital, language barriers. limited commercialization expertise, shortage of talent, and the traditional mode of operation. So this is hampering it. Let me also say, you know, if I look at my friend Fushi-san, you know, you have to have universities that at least after the bachelor allows English as a spoken language. If you want to bring in people from the outside world and you do not offer in the, let's say, the later part of the studies English, they won't come. So, proposal for improvement, this is something that I would like to discuss also with Fuji-san, but there is dire need. There is dire need. I've made a whole list of points, and as you know, I'm traveling throughout the world, and I look at institutions. Governance, a crucial point, but as I understand from Fuji-san, this is going to change. So Japanese government encourages now the leading universities to have a more objective governance structure. Faculty and hiring, I think it's absolutely crucial that you have external input for any job that is tenure. Otherwise, there is the, let's say, likelihood that it's a vertical career and very little horizontal input. No good. But the one thing I wanted to say and share with you is really this. Research funding and infrastructure. Well, I'm a bit on the late side, but this is important. Because there are two modes of funding. There is what I call a high trust funding, means you guys get a stable funding from government and you decide how you spend that money. And the second is the low trust money, where the government tells you, I give you money if you do AI research. The problem with the second one is, of course, you do not necessarily get the best because you have to spend the money on those people you have. Interestingly, there has been a study that showed the higher the level of low trust funding is in a country, the less the productivity. To me, not a surprise. That's why I want to show you this. There is a great model in Europe called the European Research Council, and the European Research Council does not fund projects. They fund brains. So they look at people, they look at their history, and then there are the criteria, but the one important criteria I have in blue, it's called portability. So a young person, usually let's say 35 or so, will get for 5 years 1.5 to 2 million euro and set up everything with this fund. This is how you run your own group. And now this portability thing is, they decide where to spend the money in what university or research institute. They decide. You know why that would be important for Japan? Because it's not the top-down approach. Let's say the top 5, sorry to say. It is where a person thinks he or she can do the best research. And that's where they carry the money. By the way, the same program exists, even better paid, for the tenured people. So that's what I wanted to say. There's a lot of things. So how to implement it? Well, here we go. Kishida has come up with that program, which is very good. But as I try to convince you, you want to do this, you need a pipeline. Where's the pipeline coming from? Missing. Substantial increase of government funding for R&D. This is missing. And it won't work no matter how much he pours into venture capital, unless you establish a broader base, including, by the way, also bringing people in. I'm not saying this all has to come from here, but people come here when they see there is a nice environment, intellectual environment that is supportive for your goals, whatever those may be. So, key messages. The innovation plan has the potential to double Japan's GDP growth rate over the next decade. It could create 1.5 million additional high-tech jobs. The plan aims to boost high-tech exports by 50%. A fourfold increase in new startups formation could revitalize Japanese business and landscape and foster a culture of innovation. And here you see, this is the bright lamp floating above Mount Fuji. By significantly increasing public R&D investment and implementing a wide-range reform, Japan's full innovative potential will be unleashed. And this not only promises to drive economic growth and improve quality, but also positions Japan to lead in solving global challenges through innovation. So I had a lot of contacts with people, and once I had a contact with the German minister. She was okay, not super, but she made one statement which I wanted to share with you because it's a real good statement. And this is the statement. At the table of the world, there are only two options. Either you have a seat at the table or you are on the menu.
Peter, fantastic. Let's do a quick show of hands. Who of you thinks the AI summary was better than the real presentation?
Yes, it was. It was.
No, it was
but
not.
It was flat. It was flat.
It was.
I had empathy.
You had empathy. No, absolutely fantastic. And I do, in the interest of time, I do want to open it up for questions, as soon as possible. But Peter, let me bring it down to something personal, because you have been active. In the United States, in the Germany, of course, and in Japan. In your personal experience, apart from being food on the table, what has been your here in Japan as the president of OIST? What was your best experience, and also what was your most frustrating experience?
The best experience was that Japan, driven, by a number of individuals, has undertaken to start something that was supposed to serve as a model for Japanese universities. It will never replace the Japanese university system, but what it did, it showed elements that you need to incorporate in a university if you want to be internationally competitive and get the foreign talent. This was great. The one thing that maybe I'm spoiled, the one thing that was a great frustration is that the Japanese, unlike the German government, is not dedicated to fund properly, as I showed, the cutting-edge research that is absolutely required for a high number of IP. And furthermore, they even do not tell you what the plans are. So having worked at OIST, I had no idea. I was coming, hired to develop OIST from OIST. When I came, there were 45 professors. And when I left, we had about 90. But OIST originally was planned to be like Caltech, 300 professors. And this number is very reasonable, by the way. I can argue for the number. If you want a science university, this is about the limit, 200 to 300 minimum. That's Caltech. So, and I cannot understand if they would have wanted to stop with OIST 100, OIST would look differently. Would be a life science university, would be a physics, chemistry. It would not be what it is right now because we do not have enough depth and we do not have enough breadth. So the real frustration was the inertia and the unresponsiveness of the Japanese government. And one of the reasons is that there's a sole source of funding. And that's different in most countries. Germany, for example, we have for Max Planck 50-50. So half of the money comes from federal, the other half from the state. No one has a right to tell you what to do. So that was my frustration. And I mean, if I come down to the essential, you really have to have less and fewer bureaucrats to run your scientific programs because they think they know. And I'm not saying we do not need a balance between project-oriented, but what Japan has really suffered from is you have not brought up in this balance enough funding for cutting-edge research. So,
I mean, it's quite amazing for me, when Peter pulled me into, OIST, sort of to realize, I mean, Japan is sort of known supposedly for its long-term planning and commitment. And then when you realize that, my God, actually every year you have to fight for the budget. There is no 5-year plan. There is every year you're in the trenches rather than sort of having certainty of, okay, here's a 5 or 10-year plan, which is very, very frustrating. Peter, one final point, and please do prepare your questions from my side. Tell us a little bit about the governance, of the Max Planck Institute,
yes.
And the diversity that you have there, which I think is absolutely fascinating to hear from a Japanese perspective.
Looking again at Fuji-san.
So you need to stand up and. No. So for those of you who don't know, he's the president of Tokyo University.
No matter where you go in the world, you have a governance body. In the United States, it's usually called a board. In Germany, it's called, in the Max Planck, it's called the Senate. In OIST, we had a board of governors. So no matter what the term is, but there is a board that's supposed to be neutral. And this board is supposed to support the major decisions that are proposed by the management. And it's very clear because we are talking about millions and millions that the balance is that you need to bring good arguments to argue for, you want to change the Todai University completely to humanities. So here we are. So the Max Planck board is a very special because, like I said, we get literally 2 billion euro for every year for support from the states and from the federal. So what we have is a board that consists of one element, and those are delegates from the government. Because they want to make sure that the money, but it's 1/3 only. 1/3 public life. So I have CEOs, I had chairs of boards from companies, I had actually the leading German Catholic bishop. The point is, you want a reflection of the society so that these people can transmit what Max Planck is good for. And the other third are scientists or scientific organizations. So not a single group has a majority. And I enjoyed that very much because your arguments that you present to these people have to be very balanced.
Right.
right? But it's incredible how fast they understand. If you want to recruit a top scientist, what is a good top scientist? So that was very rarely had we any debate. Because that's the money. If you hire top scientists, you have no worries. You hire mediocre scientists, you have worries.
No, and the other thing that's very important at the operational level, that you actually see, the evaluation of principal investigator and his or her units, right? That they are done every 5 years by an international board,
right,
rather than the sort of domestic board, which I think, in Japan, it's wonderful because everybody scratches everybody's back. Sorry, that's only the guys. No, but it's very, very siloed and very, very Ivy Tower.
Yes.
While
this
Peter
is very
has
crucial.
Completely cracked it open.
Absolutely. Every institute is reviewed by an international board without the presence of a Max Planck scientist.
So
every 5 years. Tells the president, also in confidence, what the issues are. So this way, you have a quality control that, from the science point of view, cannot be better unless you have bad people in the committee. No.
Any questions from the audience, please? Sir.
Thank you so much. My name is Takehito. I'm a faculty member at Sophia University. You briefly touched about the hiring structure of faculty at Japanese university. Also, you pointed out about horizontal input difficulties. From 5 or 10 years or 20 years, what kind of qualification will be needed at Japanese university among faculty members to advance innovation, either from outside of Japan, either from inside of Japan? Could you share your forecast or some considerations? Thank you.
Well, we had a discussion. This is, of course, a discussion on and off virtually in every other committee as well. But let me tell you one thing. It's an anecdote. And this anecdote is, when I was at OIST, I hired a female scientist and from a leading Japanese university. And I have, with every new hire, I had an honest discussion. Where do they want to go? What do they want to do? And then I looked at her CV and said, but you already were assistant professor at XYZ. Well, why do you come to OIST as an assistant professor? Well, she said, as in this university, you are an assistant to the professor. You're a better postdoc. So, first thing, you need independency as young as possible. That's why I love this ERC model, and one could actually establish it within a university.
Right.
That's what Max Planck did. We have programs for the young, usually, as I said, give and take 35, and you give them 5 years full funded. This is, for another reason, if you look, I'm now talking about Nobel Prizes. If you look at the Nobel Prizes, they are worked out between 35 and 43. If you don't have an independence between 35 and 43, you most likely will not get enough prize. So bottom line is, you need to restructure your recruitment system, bring the young people in, give them full independence. Ideally like that, because the full independence is guaranteed if you bring your own money. That's why I was thinking this ERC scheme would revolutionize Japan. That would revolutionize Japan, because the big professor has no say. He or she would take the young person, in order to then have that person do their work and stimulate intellectually. So to your question regarding the tech transfer, you need a very tight network. I see Daisuke Kan, I see you, of both. You need the large companies, and you need the startups to educate them, and you have to find programs where you then can give people like Daisuke, let's say, an adjunct a professorship for a couple of years and teach. So those young people, ideally, I would say, during PhD, you have to train these people in order to open up their minds, that this is something that has a career for them in stock.
I mean, it's so interesting because with the ERC, if you look at it, if Peter receives that grant, you will actually have different universities raising their hand and compete for him to move to that thing. So you've got Vienna University competing with Munich University, competing with Barcelona University, and this degree of competition, we always talk about the need for more money, fine. But the actual allocation and incentives behind the money to break up the ossified, trenches within the universities by increasing or offering competition, that's absolutely key. I think, for Japan in particular, because the verticals are not just verticals, they are thicker than the Berlin Wall. Any additional questions, please? Sensei, okay. You want to come up on stage?
No, that's okay. Thank you so much. Yes, in fact, the one of the best postdocs in my group also got an ERC, and then he went back to France and got a professorship there. But by the way, I would like to ask about the labor market and also the talent recruitment customs in Japan. So because that is very much related to the kind of declining number of PhD students. And as you touched upon the good change in the students' mind so they are going over to this startup something. But at the same time, there's still this, the labor, historical customs in Japan to recruit students. Exactly right after their graduation at the time, and then with a very big volume. And also their salary rather will be basically increasing year by year. This incremental. So, and then it basically, looking at this lifelong employment. So that makes a kind of sort of inflexible situation in the kind of their career and their job market itself. So that also very much, blocking the PhD students will be evaluated in the right way, and they're just spending 3 more years in the university and just put them in. So they're put into this salary ladders. For this very, systematic salary system. So that how do you, what is your view from the outside the country? Because I myself, so I'm looking at all these systems are still existing in Japan. And it's, of course it is changing, but it still exists. And the students, spend a lot of time, even 1 or 2 years, for getting this job right after their graduation. So, and that hugely blocks the kind of their flexibility when they think about their own careers. So, what is your view?
My answer is very simple. Stop it. And this is it ruins the university. And where I was, and most of the German universities as well, you may get an extra year after your PhD for looking for a job. But the key is, this is the time you got to move. Yeah. You have to look at the world of science in other places. You may also want to switch fields. So OIST, we get 1 extra year after the PhD. Max Planck, we get an extra year after PhD, but there is no way these people can stay. Sometimes you have really a lot of, let's say, debates with the group leaders, but let them go for a year and then come back. But the point is, if they stay, you ossify, I use your term, you ossify your system, it's no good.
Okay.
So I think you can use maybe, international influence to bring this about. You will have to fight your professors, yes, but it has to be done. Do not do this.
Okay.
You will revolutionize the Japanese system by stopping it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm always saying to all these, top of the big companies to stop them,
Right.
stop it. So,
Right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Koshiba-san, do you have a comment?
Yeah, maybe.
As a
He has a comment.
representative of top companies.
Am I the only one, the bad guy, to represent the big corporation?
You're
No,
the
no,
good
no,
guy.
no.
Yeah, I'm one of the most progressive group of the corporate management, so I cannot really agree with you anymore. But really, the corporate hiring is changing, and but also majority of the people, they're so much influenced by parents. So parents really encourage the kids to go to the kind of take the stable jobs. And, mostly, Japanese companies, they do have very nice retirement package. Once you've, been through the whole career at the end of like 60 or 65 years old, even the college, high school, graduates, they get something like $200,000 or $300,000 retirement money. That is the big issue. Mm-hmm. So before we discuss anything, we really have to get rid of this retirement package, or the people can choose either one of those.
Right.
So that is a very important transformation of the society, and we've been telling this kind of issue. A lot of people tell me, shut up, right? So this is one of the most sensitive issues, because labor union in Japan is not as strong as in Germany or other countries, but still they're influential. But anyway, thank you, and good seeing you. And, I was kind of, watching OIST, and I was one of the review committee of the 10th year of OIST. And today they have like 92 professors. And I don't know if I have a chance to, ask you the question, but, one thing, and I know you wanted to do a lot of things, you have done a lot of, academic achievements, but also at the same time, you really spend a lot of time to really, dedicate to your community in Okinawa, because OIST is really meant for Okinawa. So if you have this one word you want to tell the OIST today, Karin, new dean, president.
One wish?
One wish, yes.
One wish, okay.
Please, let me know.
My wish is to convince the government to cough up the money for the growth from OIST 100 to 200. That's it, very simple. Everything else takes care of, because then you get a great leader, because you have growth, you have a perspective.
I mean, sorry, if we cut into this, because this goes into the innovation complex, right? Because, you talk about deep science, you talk about, fundamental research. And what Peter taught me, like nobody else, is that the exciting, interesting, really innovative stuff happens in between. It's not the discipline of physics. It's not the discipline of chemistry. It is that interaction in between. And that's, can you talk a little bit about, the no departments, that sort of philosophy to foster the interchange?
This is another thing which we have to change, and this is the transparency between departments. OIST has by birth, no departments. So it's very easy to shuttle back and forth. And on the same floor, you have a chemist, you have a neuroscientist, you have a physicist, and they can chat whenever they meet on the hallway. But for you guys, I think it's very important that you have a information and a training in more than one. And it always in field, sorry. And OIST has a very specific policy of training, and that is that when you want to become a PhD student, we have like 1.5 years of training. Everyone has to take 3 months in a lab that is different from the field of choice. And very often, after they've done that, they switch. So this is what I think we need to do. And I should also say that I hope you didn't understand me that the big industry is the bad guy, just the opposite. But you need the balance. See, without the big industry, science is dead. But the balance between this incremental and the breakthrough, this is where Japan is suffering. Yeah.
I think we've got one question from the world.
Yes, we have one question from the Zoom audience. How do you think Japan can achieve a transparent and fair evaluation system? This is the hardest wall to break through, and it shaves down the motivation of young and...
I have an answer.
And do you think AI can effectively dispel or disconnect these evaluations?
Let's uncouple the last one first. At this point of time, I think I sense in Japan that there is a change coming. Now, if I was the government, I would increase the funding for basic research, for research, let's just say, publicly funded research. However, I would provide that funding with requirements. Now we can discuss, these requirements have to be, let's say, co-developed by international boards, how the Japanese universities should change. And that is very crucial. So the answer to this question is very simple. Money makes the world go round. You give money, but you give the money only based on criteria. That will work. AI, AI is a platform. You can use AI for anything. And obviously, in one slide I had, we are not yet in Japan as AI literate as other countries, and this is necessary that universities shape up and not just work on AI research, which is also necessary, but utilize AI, administration, God knows, and, like in my field, molecular medicine, Jesus Christ, this is, unthinkable without AI. So you have to bring these in, but this is, I'm not worried about that because, if you are a scientist, you know what you need in order to be better. So you bring in AI. It's not a big issue. So here I have no concern because if you are smart, if you are in, let's say, genomic analysis, you know very well that without AI you are out of business. So you'll include it. So that's the way I think about it. So you have to separate the platform technology that you use for daily businesses and the research AI. Research AI, I think I have no problems in conceiving that the bright guys get these programs and the questions and whatever they take. And the third element is Fujisan needs research because unfortunately, the current AI funding is, 95% or more from companies. So there may be a danger that we fall behind in terms of interests of scientists being researched separately. There is a danger.
Two sort of pieces that puzzle me a bit. One is, can you talk a bit about how Japan could improve its performance in converting basic research into successful commercial products, into successful economic growth, employment growth? Kind of connected to that, I understand that you say it's important to have fundamental research, long-term research done in Japan. But why is that so important anymore in a world where we can communicate electronically, where we can read anybody's research report? If you look at Japan's past, a lot of industry was based on basic research done elsewhere, like semiconductors turned Sony into a major success, LCDs, so lots of examples. Can you talk about those two pieces?
Absolutely. The latter, of course, was a time when the time to market was much longer. Nowadays, as you can see, this was a very simple number I provided you with: 645 unicorns in the United States, 5 in Japan. This gives you all the news that you need to know about translating information into products and companies. So it's not like this anymore because the time to market is much quicker. First point. Second point, every good place, university, needs professional tech transfer. This was one of your questions, and I had no time to go into this. But I established at OIST a very professional tech transfer unit with about, give and take 20 people. These people are up to the top, and we have actually a guy who I hired from Israel, which is the, let's just say, the mecca of startups, and he was the head of the tech transfer unit for the Weizmann, Jeda. So absolute professional. I'm looking at Fujisan. Todai has a very good functioning technology transfer unit. So what I'm saying is, and it comes also back to a question that was asked before, you have to bring in these guys to the researchers. But the time is over, and if you look at in statistical terms, most of the IP is realized in companies at the region where it has been, conceived. That's the way it is. Look at all the information technology. Everything is West Coast. We're all gone. Everyone is gone. Europe is gone. Japan is gone. And this is where we go. And if I look at the Japanese car industry, this is really one of the issues for the next years. It's a separate point, but I don't agree to this station, the mentioning that you can buy patents and then be competitive. That maybe yes, but it's all incremental. You add it to what you have. You will not be able to have a Google here, right? So that will not happen, right? You need this. I don't know how to say that. If you go to a place where there is top research, you can almost sense the intellectual capacity, right? That's what you need.
Good morning, Mary-Louise Taylor from the British MC Tokyo. I'm definitely in the camp that the human presentation was more compelling than the video version. A very quick question to finish off. Do you think that Horizon 2020 and the Horizon framework offers a kind of solution to some of Japan's internationalization problems? Do you think the Japanese R&D ecosystem is ready to make the most of it?
That's a difficult question because, I mean, if you want to internationalize, it's part of the DNA of a country. You have to willingly open up your doors. We know historically Japan was a bit of a closed shop. It's opening up, but it is still very hard to attract the best, and I come to some of the criteria. But I had a nice chat yesterday with the guy at another meeting, and we were talking about something similar. And he came up with a fantastic statement. He said, "If you are a young person, where can you live your dream? Do you go to Japan to live your dream? So I mean, it's a simple answer, but it says everything. That's why people go to the United States, UK, Europe. You have to form an infrastructure, a welcome culture, a living standard. Let's say here, of course, you have everything, international schools and the likes. But outside of Tokyo, I'm not so sure you can do it. I mean, OIST is like an enclave. It's an international enclave in a Japanese environment. But if you go outside of this enclave, nothing. You cannot, you know what I mean? So you have to think about how can you change this? How can you develop a welcome culture? This starts in school with English. It starts in government policy. I mean, we all know. Look at your aging people, this aging society. You know, you will not have enough people to replace the ones that go into retirement. So there are two choices, really only two choices. Firstly, you bring in the woman, a big pool of females that you could put into work. Second, you bring in the foreigners. And for the foreigners, you really have to think harder about a welcome culture.
It's very interesting, right? Because people talk a lot about ecosystems, but like, you know, for example, you're recruiting aspiring or potential top global scientist. Chances are that he or she is married to another very bright professional, right? Now, getting a job permit for that, bright professional is a huge obstacle, right? If you look at, for example, the current visa regulations, right? So this ecosystem, right, of attracting the best and the brightest, right? And the challenge for, corporate Japan, I always, I was asked, a couple of years ago by a friend who had his son graduate from MIT in engineering. And, this young man got a job offer, right, from Siemens, actually, from Canon and from Apple. And so the father called me and said, hey, you've met Hiroshi a couple of times. Can you give him some advice? And I said, Ito-san, what do you want me to tell your son? Because if he joins the American company, right, if he's good and lucky, within 15 years, he can become the CEO. If he joins the German company, if he's good and lucky, in 15 years, he can run a region. He can be in charge of Latin America or Asia. If he joins the Japanese company, if he's good and lucky, in 15 years, what's it going to be? Kacho? So attracting the A team is a real challenge. And this is true for the corporate world. This is true for the scientific world. And of course, it's not true for the baseball world, right, where all the excellent Japanese players lead. I want to thank you so much for coming to this session, Peter.
Thank you.
It's been an honor.
Thank you. Thank you.